Cool. All right. So, welcome to Automating Document Processes with Adobe Acrobat Services. And by the way, we have a small group today. Absolutely speak up if you have any questions about what I'm saying. I don't mind stopping and answering questions as we do this. Also known as doing cool stuff with documents, document management. Not necessarily the most exciting topic, but incredibly useful. And I actually find it kind of exciting, but I'm kind of a nerd. If you want a copy of this repository, you can take a picture of that, but y'all are watching virtually. So I'm literally going to copy and paste that URL. And I just dropped it in chat. This repository will have this slide deck and also a couple of others from other presentations, but all the demos that I am showing today, you will be able to grab. The only thing you can't grab is the 2 automation examples I have at the end, but I'm willing to share those separately if you would like. And I've already shared that URL. I already had a great introduction. Thank you so much. But I will say, if you have a question later that you would like to talk to me about, my website is raymondcamden.com, and you can reach out to me there and ask anything at all. That would be totally fine. I am also a Jedi Master at adobe.com. Still shocked that I got that email alias, but I am the Jedi Master at adobe.com. And currently on Mastodon, Blue Sky, and Threads. You can find me there if you would like to see my interesting post about cats, movies, and code. So Acrobat Services really kind of breaks down into 2 core things. On one hand, you have a viewer that is a free viewer for embedding PDFs on the web. Because we're talking about automation and APIs today, I am not going to talk about that. But if you do ever need to embed a PDF on your website, you should definitely check out Adobe's PDF Embed. Browsers actually do a really good job of rendering PDFs, but they typically render it in like a full screen, take over the complete window type UI, and you lose your website essentially. And our JavaScript-based embed viewer lets you put the PDF in context with the rest of your website, in the rest of your layout and so forth. We give you really deep hooks into your analytics and things like that. And it's very, very powerful, very, very free. And again, gives you more control over working with PDFs on a website. But what we care about today is talking about working with PDFs on the server or via a automation. This is not free, but we have I think, I'm probably a little biased, but we have a very generous free tier where you can absolutely try things out, see how it works for you. And if your needs are beneath that tier, that's a forever tier. It's not a free trial. You can use it until you get bored with it, essentially. But there is that. So getting started, you will go to our website, you will get your credentials, which will be a client ID and client secret. You do not need to reach out to Adobe and sign a contract. You could do all this literally, while I'm watching you present and, get started pretty quick. And this is just a screenshot of what that experience is like. You will be presented with both PDF Embed and PDF Services. They are different credentials. If you want to work with the APIs, you want the PDF Services API to get those credentials. Once you get it, you get a client ID and a client secret. You can retrieve those later via our developer console. I don't think I'm going to show that today, but typically this is something that you want to make a copy of and store locally. I'll also say when you first sign up, you are given the option to pick an SDK. That could be .NET, Java, Node, and Python. And if you do that, we ship to you a copy of the credentials in that zip file as well. In terms of the APIs, at a high level, we have the PDF Services API, and this is kind of like our general bucket for the kind of routine, more simpler things. So you need to split a PDF. You need the OCR a PDF, and so forth. We have the document generation API, which is all about creating dynamic PDFs. And you're going to see an example of that in a few minutes. We have the extract API, which, as you could probably guess, extracts a heck of a lot of data from your PDFs and lets you get kind of a deep introspection into what's in your document. We have an accessibility auto tag and checker. We have sealing, which is not the same as Adobe Sign. The way that our docs describe it, and this kind of makes sense to me, with Adobe Sign, you as a person, Raymond Camden, I am signing this PDF. With electronic seal, it's a company or a organization marking the document as having come from them and not being tampered. So they are different things. I also say Adobe Sign is a different set of credentials and agreement. I won't be talking about that, but Sign does actually have a very robust API as well. So you can absolutely do automation with Adobe Sign too. So PDF services, this used to be marketed as PDF tools, and it's not been that for like maybe 2 years or so. But I always worry about people Googling and seeing blog posts and things like that. And so I just like to warn you, like you see PDF tools, that's what it's talking about. And again, this is our general bucket for the kind of routine things of working with PDFs, either creating, exporting, manipulation, and so forth. And that covers a heck of a lot of things. So you can go from Office and Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc., to PDF, plain text files, images, as well as static and dynamic HTML. You can convert all of those into PDF. You can also go the other way. You can export a PDF to various Office documents, text, and images. Export to images is pretty handy for if you want a thumbnail for a PDF. And I've built demos of that where I have a directory of PDFs and I want to automate the process of getting that first page and kind of shrinking it down to make a nice thumbnail that I could present on a web view for that PDF. So we have an API for that. You can combine PDFs and actually pick and choose parts from what you're combining into one. You can do OCR, you can compress and linearize. I always struggle with that word. Linearize helps with PDF streaming. So if you have a very large PDF, you can compress it, which could save a lot of size right there. But if you also linearize it, your web server can then stream that document in a more efficient way out to your users. You can work with permissions and passwords, and that's both putting them in and taking them out. And before you ask, you cannot take a password protected PDF and just tell us to take the password off. You actually have to have the password before you remove it. You can do things like inserting, replacing, moving around, rotating, etc. You can go crazy with that. You can split a PDF. One great example of this is if you are selling documents and you want to give people a free version of your document. So you're selling books that are hundreds of pages. You can automate the process of creating a preview where you get the first 5 to 10 pages of a PDF document and then open that up. And then heck, you can combine that with, skipping ahead here, a watermark where you can actually put someone's name on the PDF as well. We also have an API to get the PDF properties, so if you need to learn about it. And in beta now, we have the ability to get form field data from a PDF as well as set it. So if your organization, if you have forms online and you would like to make life easier for the people who are filling out your forms, if you have a user system of some sort, before you give or serve up a PDF form to that person, you could pre-fill a lot of that data if you know about the logged in user, name, age, date of birth, etc. I can absolutely tell you when I get a form and all the kind of basic stuff is already filled out, I am very, very happy about that. My poor wife has heard me raging about forms that will do things like ask me for my birthday and then ask me how old I am. And if I'm feeling particularly grumpy that day, I'll just write like use math or something in there. So I could be a little grumpy. All of our APIs follow the exact same, for the most part, flow. You will ask for an access token. You will upload your asset. So if I'm going to be OCRing a PDF, for example, I have to give Adobe access to it. There's a caveat on that coming up. I will then tell Adobe to do something with it. So, hey, Adobe, do your OCR. What you'll get back is a URL that is essentially the job, and you will ping that and then download the result. Now, you can also use cloud storage for everything here. And in fact, the automation examples that I'll be showing later are all going to be using cloud storage. So the whole part of uploading the asset does not really apply. I'll also say, if you are concerned about giving us a copy of your PDF, you don't want us looking at it, we actually don't have access to it. We automatically delete it after 24 hours. And we have an API that you could call to say, hey, I did this asset, I did a job on it. Now I want you to delete it immediately and not wait 24 hours. So we have that as well. So for getting your access token, very simple. You do a post to a endpoint, you pass your credentials, and you get it back. I will show you an example. All of my sample code is going to be in Node.js using the REST APIs. We do have a Node.js SDK. Personally, I just prefer the APIs, and this being an automation group, typically you can't use SDKs. You normally have to use a REST API of some sort. Pipedream, that I'm showing later, is a bit of an exception to that, but I prefer the REST API, so that's what I'm using here. And again, this is fairly vanilla Node.js, make a fetch call and get it back. I will show you this running, although a access token is not terribly exciting. There you go. If you screenshot that and copy it for 24 hours, you can do some operations, but please don't do that. 1 second. The next step, typically, again, if you're not using cloud storage, you're going to send us a copy of your asset. You'll hit another endpoint, and you do have to tell us what type of asset you're uploading. So Word, image, etc. I hate the MIME types for Office documents. I will say Node.js has a good library to simplify that for you. Or you can do what I do typically, which is Google MIME type for Microsoft Office. This will give you an asset ID back, as well as an upload URI. And that upload URI is actually what you're going to use. You're going to send us your binary data to that. So we will look at an example of that. Create and upload. So I am going to skip over the get access token because that's the exact same code. But again, the first thing you do is you tell us, I want to give you a Word document. So you hit that endpoint. We return back to you the asset ID and the upload URL, and then you just upload the document, and that's it. So this is the code using the helper functions above. I'm getting my access token. I'm asking Adobe, say, hey, I need to give you a Word document, and this is the MIME type that I was kind of complaining about. It's lovely. And then I upload it, and literally that is it. And I will run this, and I am uploading, let's see, I'm uploading a cat's Word document. So that was create and upload. So we will run node, create and upload, if I could type correctly, asset. And that was all incredibly quick. So 2 API calls, again, one to kind of say, hey, I want to give you a Word document. Adobe comes back and says, all right, stuff that thing here, and I uploaded it there. In case you're wondering, like right now, like that's like an orphan asset. Like I'm not going to use it, and that's okay. We don't bill you for the documents that you upload to do assets and stuff. And again, we automatically delete those within 24 hours. So at this point, you can actually do something. So if I want to create a PDF, for example, I want to convert that Word document to PDF, I hit the endpoint, and this is all in our documentation. I pass it the asset ID, and optionally in this case, I could tell the API, say, by the way, my source document is in English. And if I did it correctly, I don't get a JSON packet back. I get a header back that has the URL for the job. We will look at that so you can see what I'm doing. And again, I'm going to kind of skip over what I've shown. So you have the get access token, get the upload asset ID, upload it. The important part here is in the create PDF job, where basically all I need to do at minimum is pass the asset ID and then call that endpoint. And then you will see right there, I am returning the location response header back. I will say, if you screw up, you get a JSON packet of error data back. So better code here potentially would have checked for that and check the status code and stuff like that. I think our APIs do a pretty darn good job of when you screw up being kind of verbose about what you did wrong. So it's typically not something that you have to worry about too much if you make a mistake. But this script is essentially starting convert a Word document to PDF job. And I'll fire that so you can see the result. Let's create PDF. Create PDF.js. So again, got an access token, created an asset, uploaded the asset, kicked off the job. And if I were to ping this URL with my credentials, which we'll see in a second, we could check it. And that's it right there. You do a post against that job URL. Again, you pass your credentials, and then you just look at the status. So we will look at that. And right here. So again, kind of skipping over the code that I've already shown you. After I have created that job and I get that URL, I can write kind of a simple, lame little while loop there, where every 2 seconds, I'm going to hit that. I'm going to look at the status, and I am dumping it to my terminal there. And while it is in progress, I will just keep looping. You will get a success or failure based on what actually happened. What I did do, actually, you know what? I am looking at the wrong file here. I skipped ahead a little bit here. This is the one I want to show. I'm not going to show downloading just yet, but all I'm doing here is while it's working, I'm going to dump it out. So let's look at this. Let's check job. I need to number these scripts so I remember exactly which one to show next. So again, I skipped past getting the access token and all that, and that was rather quick. I check every 2 seconds, and this took 4 seconds. I will say, depending on what you're doing, depending on the size of your input, you can expect different timings. In general, and again, I'm pretty biased. Things rarely take more than 5 to 7 seconds or so. We do kind of continuously look at optimizations we can make on the back end. But if you are sending a very large document and doing something a bit more intense like extract, which you're going to see in a few minutes, then it will take a bit more time. But what I want to show you is that this is the last status result for success. And you can see it tells me what it was. It's a PDF. And obviously, if I was going exporting from PDF to, let's say, Microsoft Word, that type would be different. I know the size, and I have a download URI as well. This also has its own asset ID. So if I wanted to do cleanup on that, I could as well. But that is the basics. And then The complete thing, which I showed you by accident, is just to suck down that URL, no office required. And I will show you that, although you already kind of saw it. Literally the only thing different in this final result is I added a utility function to download the result. Now, I think we should look at the source first so y'all could see it. It's not terribly interesting, but it is cats.docx. And there we go. A lot of lorem ipsum type stuff with some pictures. And then, so my script is going to take this, upload it to Adobe, kick off the conversion job, and when done, download the bits to output cats.pdf. So we will run that. And that was create PDF complete. Create PDF complete. Take a sip of water while it works. And because I said it's very fast, obviously now is taking a little bit more time. There's always going to be a bit of randomness in there in terms of sending bits across the wire and all that. But in theory, this has been downloaded to what I call output cats.pdf. And we can look at that right in Visual Studio Code. And there is the PDF. So everything in there, everything that PDF service can do boils down to getting your access token, creating and uploading the asset if you aren't using cloud storage, starting the job, checking the status, and downloading. Again, if you're not using cloud storage, because if you're using cloud storage, you can output right to your S3 bucket and you don't have to worry about downloading. And you can just repeat that. For external support, we support SharePoint, we support Dropbox, Azure Blobs, and Amazon S3. For my automation demos coming a little bit later, I used SharePoint for Power Automate, and I used Dropbox for Pipedream. But obviously, you can definitely use the other ones as well. External supports, yeah, same thing. I will point out, you do need to handle making those links yourself. Now, Power Automate kind of has that baked in, so you don't have to worry about. And Pipedream, it's not too hard as well. But Adobe, like we can't access your cloud storage unless you give us access to it. And typically that process is via the SDK to say, hey, I need for this asset a readable URL where anybody can access the bits at this URL. And I need a writable URL such that a anonymous service can push binary bits to this particular URL to do an operation. So we don't do that for you, but you should not have too much trouble with the SDKs. And I've worked with the SDKs for S3, Azure Blob, and Dropbox, not so much SharePoint, but you can do it with that as well. And in theory, you don't have to check the status. You should, but you can just assume that it worked okay. So we also support webhooks. I'm not going to run an example of that, but we have documentation on it. We have a blog post. If you want to not, poll our services and instead have us tell you when we're done, that is absolutely an option as well. So just some last minute things. Again, remember this used to be PDF tools. You can chain, which is going to be very important in automation scenarios where you may want to do things like convert a Word document to a PDF. And then I want you to optimize the PDF. And then I want you to password protect the PDF. And then I want you to seal the PDF. You can chain all those together where you basically say, hey, do the conversion, take that asset ID and use it for the next operation. So the next big kind of feature I want to talk about is document generation. This is dynamic document creation at scale. You use a Word template, Word document as a template, and then it takes your data, combines it with the document and can output a dynamic PDF or a dynamic Word document. So what that means is you take Word, regular desktop or heck, even the web-based Microsoft Word, and you write your stuff. You convert portions of that document to have tokens, and I'll talk about those tokens more. You get your data from a database, external API, whatever. You call us, and then we output a dynamic PDF with those with your data merged with the Word document. This uses an open source project called JSONata, which you can look at if you want. That defines a way to create tokens and do essentially a template language that we can use inside Microsoft Word. We support looping, conditionals, formatting, etc. And to be clear, your data means anything. Like once you send it to us, it's JSON, but it can come from anything at all. I'm going to show a real basic demo where I have Microsoft Word and I have some kind of like static stuff in there. You can see dear names, pleasure to invite you to join our company as title, working out of our office location, we'll pay you a salary, and et cetera. And benefits is just hard-coded as benefits. What I want to do is say, I want to take this and I want to make this dynamic. Now, I actually have some data already. And let me find that real quick. I actually already have it open. There's my JSON data, name, title, office, salary, and benefits. We actually ship a Microsoft Word add-in that lets you do some of this tokenization directly in Microsoft Word. And once you have that add-in installed, I can copy and paste my JSON. I'm going to paste it in there and say generate tags. And now the add-in itself will kind of recognize what your data is. I can go in here and say, hey, that really should be a token, and title should be a token like that, working at our office location. And you're getting paid a salary of salary. And I mentioned we supported conditions and looping. I will show a list like this of a bullet. And what's nice is that the Word add-in, it actually looked at that JSON data and it recognized that one of them was an array of strings, and that was benefits. So I'm going to look at my benefits.name. There we go. Yeah, that's the actual value. And now if I insert it, there we go. All right, so that should be right. I'm going to do that one more time though, because I'm not supposed to have a bullet around there. There we go. So I use this Word add-in. You don't have to use it. Like if you could probably memorize, bracket for this, and our docs explain all of the various operations and stuff. But this makes it easy. And what's really cool is that a non-technical person can probably handle designing this and writing text and stuff. And you can actually directly from in here test this yourself. And I will just move this login window over here so you don't see my password. Continue. And my password is 1234. I say that out loud. All right, I'm logging in. And right now it's calling the API. And it did it. And if I do view document, and it went over here, so I'll drag this over here, you could see this is the output. And you could see I messed up the space there, but that was on me. I can fix that. That's my job title, has my name, and it's in a PDF. By the way, this is an example of PDF embed, where the PDF is part of the web page completely. But you can actually test all of this directly from Microsoft Word, which I think is pretty freaking cool, actually. Typically, when I'm doing anything with DocGen, this is what I use. At the very end, I go to my code. But normally, if I'm testing a feature like this, I just stay in Word. And it again, I'm a nerd. Makes me really excited that I can use Word like this. So that is document generation. I will say my template was kind of boring. We do have, and I'll actually open this up, a bunch of more business-oriented type templates where you can actually download it. And we even have a online demo where you could test it all directly in your browser as well. And again, has more businessy, corporate-y templates to work with that are definitely a little bit prettier, but you could try all this yourself directly in the browser, which I like. So Extract API, this is powered by AI, machine learning, language, etc. Would not call it Gen AI, I would just call it AI. But it does incredibly detailed, deep dives into your PDFs. There are other tools out there that can look at a PDF and take stuff out. Again, biased, but where I think our API really, really shines is that it really intelligently looks at what's in the document. It recognizes when things go over pages, for example, when a table, for example, may be in multiple pages. It can do things like giving you the images from a PDF. And this was really cool, return tables as either images, CSV, or XLSX. I did a demo many years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, where you imagine a scenario where a scientific publication, they have journals, and they've converted their journals to PDF to keep them safe. That's great, but there's data in those PDF documents that you may not have direct access to. Extract is actually able then to go in there and say, hey, every month you publish stellar data. You publish the table of stars and how bright they were. Well, I can actually get you that as pure data that you can then put into a database. So obviously Adobe, we're pro PDF, but we recognize that once something's in a PDF, you still need to actually do stuff with it. So we have a visualizer for this that kind of shows you in a very kind of nice visual way. On the left side, we have a PDF document. On the right side, we have kind of a nicer view of the JSON data that comes back out. But you can see, like, for example, this figure, we tell you exactly where it is, X, Y position on the page. When it comes to text, we tell you it's bound. We tell you the font, which apparently is Adobe Clean Regular, as well as the size and all that. This is an incredible amount of data. And if you think about it, there's so much things that you can do with this in terms of compliance. For example, your company got bought out, and the new company, they insist that you use a particular font for all your corporate documentation. Well, you can actually use PDF Extract to do an automation of, look at our library of existing PDFs, look at the fonts being used. And if there are PDFs that are not using the right fonts, flag them for follow-up later. Because you have text access, you can look for text that may be bad. You may want to change old, outdated text, etc. So I do have some demos of this. I will show you real quick. It's really going to be like a bunch of data, overflowing amount of data, but API-wise, it is the exact same. So I'm going to skip over all that. Gain the access token, we're uploading, we're doing an extract job. It's just going to be a new endpoint. And then when we're done, I actually extract I save the JSON. I'm not going to run this. I already have the output. I'll save you from watching that. Like I said, Extract is more of a beefier API. So this one can take a little bit longer at times, but you're still talking worst case 10-ish seconds at the most. It's not long. And of course, once you run Extract, you don't have to run it again. Like, you're done. So this is the output, and that is incredibly huge. In fact, that PDF document gave me millions of lines of JSON. No, 50,000 lines of JSON text, as much data as you want. The more interesting thing is actually using it later. So in this particular example, I am working with the extracted data because, again, there's no point in doing it more than once. And I'm just going to dump the screen, the text to screen. So if I run that, that was extract 1A, oops, extract 1A, like this, and just the text, probably not as useful. A more useful example could be, what if I want to get the headers? The headers could be a good way of creating an outline, for example, from a document. Now, my particular source document had a grand total of, I think, one H1 header, but there are more headers in that document, like H2s as well. So you could make this a bit more deep in terms of how it outputs an outline for you. Get back to my slide deck. So we have an accessibility API, both a tagging API as well as a checker. And what this is going to do is, again, using AI and add tags to tables, paragraphs, lists, and headings, tries to identify reading order as well. And it generates a Excel report about what it did. It generates the tag PDF when it's done, but this is not meant to be if you do this, you're accessible and you could just walk away. Rather, we kind of view it as like an 80%-ish, a lot of the grunt work, which if you have 1 million documents to make accessible, 80% complete, I think is really darn good. And again, we combine this with a report so that you can get an idea of what it's actually doing. So we do have an online demo for that. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to actually run this, but if you want to test this and see how it works, you can do that. Same for sealing. And again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. It's different from sign because it's more of an organization saying, hey, we say this document is ours and is secure. So it's company, organization versus an individual. For this API, you do have to have a trust service provider. That is a different API that we don't control. That's something that you have to set up yourself, and can also work with a time-stamping authority. That's an example of what a sealed PDF looks like. I have to admit, before I started working with this API, I'd never heard of this feature. So I did not know how Acrobat actually rendered it. And that shows you right there how it's done. We also have an online demo that you can try. So I love writing code as much as anybody else, but our APIs do the same thing every single time. So if I want to test something, I'd rather use a quick little web tool like this. I can show my boss essentially, hey, this is what it looks like when it's done. So our main site, I don't know if I've actually showed the link to it or not. This is our marketing site, etc. I will point out that the get set, we call import export form data, it is tied behind a login. Tied behind beta access, and you do have to reach out to us. So if that interests you, please do so. And we have support forums as well. But y'all came here for automation, so I'm going to show 2 quick examples of how to do automation with this. I am going to start with Power Automate. We have an Acrobat Services connector. It does require the premium Power Automate account. I will say this is not quite as efficient as raw HTTP calls. Reason being is that, I mentioned a few minutes ago that you can chain these calls. So if I'm doing convert Word to PDF, add a password, one nice thing with the REST-based APIs and the SDKs, I don't have to download that PDF. I upload the Word document, tell Adobe, make it a PDF. Adobe has it. And I tell Adobe, take that PDF, add a password to it, and then I download the bits. Right now, our connectors don't support that kind of handoff. You can absolutely do a multi-step process, but you will need to kind of shuttle things back and forth as you work. Again, we are aware of this and are working for it. To find the connector, you will search for Adobe PDF, and I will show you my flow. Let me just say, I've expired, yeah. Logging in. I am not a Power Automate Pro. I have a lot of respect for Power Automate. Sometimes it frustrates me just a teeny tiny bit, especially when I want to do like this one line of code and I can't do it. But what I did was build a very, very simple flow that said when a file is dropped into a SharePoint folder, in this case, I have one called incoming files. I want to grab the file contents, and then this is our connection. This is our tool that you can use where I can just say, take that and convert it to PDF. And the last thing I do is do an operation that's going to put that result up in a converted PDF folder. So in theory, I'll hit test. I haven't deployed this yet, but we'll hit test manually, and it's running. This is my SharePoint folder. I am going to drop in a new Word document. I'm just going to do a random one, actually one of my DocGen ones. The one I just showed you. We'll drop in very basic.docx. All right, so in theory, I'm going to go back over here. Power Automate always takes, I think, up to about 30 seconds or so before it kicks off. But while it's doing that, this is my output folder, and I'll just reload this. And in theory, when it's done, we should see it firing. And Power Automate, don't let me down, but you can just take your time, fire off whenever you're ready. And I did drop it in. Yes, it's there. Oh, there we go. All right, sweet. And it's actually fire. Right. It recognized, it got the file, it converted, it's done. And if we reload here, I didn't have to reload even. We have very basic PDF. And that is, come on, there we go. And that was just the template that we used earlier. So that Power Automate, incredibly simple. I could have made that more complex, and I've done more complex things with Power Automate. I much prefer Pipedream just because it is so much easier to work with. It does not have built-in support. We don't. Pipedream doesn't ship a automatic action to work with PDF services, but you can write Node.js code, and you could do, I think, a lot more than Power Automate. Let me back this up here, and let me switch to my Pipedream. I'm going to bring this browser over here. All right. So I know, Johan, you had mentioned that the Pipedream people had presented to you all in the past, but for people who may not have heard of it, it is a workflow automation. So you create triggers, you create steps, bits of logic. What I have done is basically said, when a new file is added to Dropbox into a folder called Acrobat Services, first thing I do is make sure it's in the input subdirectory. Pipedream can only trigger on the top level folder in Dropbox. So I do a little bit of logic to say, am I going into the input? I then check the extension to make sure it is one of the extensions that Acrobat Services supports. And you can see a long list of stuff there. And I then get my access token. And this is pretty much the exact same Node.js code I had before. I'm using environment variables. I'm doing that post. I get an access token back. I then ask Dropbox using their SDK to give me a upload link. All right. And again, that goes back to the whole cloud storage thing of where you are responsible for grabbing that particular link. And then I fire off the convert to PDF job. And this is an example of how cloud storage looks. So I didn't have to upload that file from Dropbox. I just used the URL I got when the file was added. That was automatic with the Pipedream trigger. I can give that URL to Acrobat API. I can give it the output writable link that I just made with the Dropbox SDK. And then I just kick that thing off. And I do have a final step where I loop over and return the job status. I don't do anything after this, but I could absolutely do something like send an email, say, hey, I failed to convert this particular job. I could move the input to another folder, I need more help folder type thing. So this is deployed. This is my input file, and I'm going to drop a picture in here. It's not the best example of going to a PDF, but I will drop, trying to find a cool picture. And how about Batman? That's a cool Batman picture. All right. Nope. Go away. I'm going to drop this Batman picture right into Dropbox. It's uploaded. And then in theory, I should see Pipedream kick off an event. And there it is running on the side. And if I click on this, I can actually see, there we go, how it's working. So it's going to, oh, it went pretty, and okay, it's done. So if we go to my output folder, we should have, it had a weird name, and that should be Batman once it loads. I'm blaming Dropbox for this. You know what? Let's download this because it's being difficult. And oh, yeah, because I complained, it showed up. So let me get this back off screen so I can see what y'all are saying. That's basically it. I am open to any and all questions that y'all may have. Like I said, the Pipedream flow and the Power Automate flow are not in my repo. Y'all need a copy of that, ask away.